So we've been talking about what a radical is and how we can simplify it. But now we're going to move into operations with radicals, and we're going to start with multiplying and dividing. But let's review simplifying. When we simplify a radical, remember, it's like saying we have a number to the 1/2 power. So in order to pull things out of a radical or to simplify it, we need pairs. And so we're going to take our square roots and we're going to break them into its prime factors and try and identify pairs. So square root of 184 can break into 2 and 92. 2 is prime, so we're going to break 92 into 2 and 41. And both 2 and 41 are prime, so we've broken 184 into the smallest primes we can. And we look for pairs. We have a pair of 2, so that 2 goes on the outside. 41 goes on the inside, so we have 2 square root of 41. Square root of 48 can also be simplified, first by breaking into 2 and 24. 24 then goes into 2 and 12. 12 can break down further into 2 and 6, and 6 can even break down further into 2 and 3. And so we're going to look for pairs. We have 2 pairs of 2's, so we're going to pull out 2 2's, and 2 times 2 is 4. And we're going to leave that 3 inside because it doesn't have a pair. So we get 4 square root of 3. Questions on reviewing, please ask in class because we're going to use this simplifying technique when we multiply and divide. Now multiplying radicals, and when I multiply radicals, I'm going to multiply the outside by the outside and the inside by the inside. So let's look at our first example. When I multiply the square root of 8 times the square root of 30, I'm just saying 8 times 30 is 240, so I get the square root of 240. But we never want to leave a radical in non-simplified form. So we're going to simplify 240 by breaking it down into its prime factors, and we get out 4 square root of 15. Take a moment if you need to, pause the video, and make sure you understand how to simplify. In our second example, we now have one number in front of the square root. So we're going to say square root of 5 times 3 square root of 6. Like I said earlier, we multiply the outsides by the outsides and the insides by the insides. So it's going to be 3 times, well, when there's nothing there, it's that ninja 1. So 3 times 1 is 3, and 5 times 6 is 30. So we get 3 square root of 30. And in this case, we don't need to simplify because 30 is as small as it can go. Our last example, now we have numbers outside and inside on both of them. So we're going to say 2 times 4, the outside times the outside, and the insides times the insides, 3 times 6. So we get 8 square root of 18. Of course, we can simplify 18 by breaking it down into its prime factors and pulling out a set of 3's. So now we have 8 times 3 square root of 2, or 24 square root of 2. So after all that, we end up with our final answer, 24 square root of 2. If that was a little fast, that's okay. Pause the video, look through it, work through each of these problems on your own, and see if you can come up with the same answers I did. Dividing radicals is just slightly different. When we divide a radical, we actually want to break the radical up into 2 smaller pieces. So we're going to say the square root of 250 over 9 is the same as the square root of 250 over the square root of 9. Because now we can take and simplify each of these radicals separately. So once you've broken it into its 2 pieces, simplify both the numerator and the denominator separately. So we took the square root of 250 and simplified it into 5 square root of 10. And we took the square root of 9, the denominator, and simplified it into 3. And once I've simplified the numerator and the denominator separately, I put them back into my final answer. Square root of 250 is the same as 5 square root of 10. And the square root of 9 is the same as 3. So my final answer is 5 square root of 10 over 3. Now let's look at another example. So I have the square root of 12 m cubed n to the 8th over 49. That's a mouthful. And we're going to look at our second example. We can split that into 12 m to the 3rd n to the 8th over square root of 49. I know there's an error there. It should say 12, not 212. We're going to fix it in the next step. Now, again, we're going to simplify the numerator and the denominator separately. So 12 m to the third n to the eighth is going to simplify down to 2m n to the fourth square root of 3m. And the square root of 49 is going to simplify into 7. Put that into my final answer, and I get 2m n to the fourth square root of 3m all over 7. Now you might be wondering what happens if that denominator doesn't simplify easily, because then I have radicals in the numerator still and the denominator. Well, don't worry, you curious people. We're going to talk about that in class when you come in the next day. So now it's your turn. Pause the video and give these a shot. Let's look at our first one. So 2 times 6, we're going to multiply the outsides by the insides. 5 times 7, so we get 12 square root of 35, and that is in its simplified form. Look at our second example. We're going to multiply 7 times 4 and get 28, and 6 times 3 and get 18. So we get 28 square root of 18. But square root of 18 we know simplifies, and we can pull out a set of 3's. Square root of 18 is the same as 3 square root of 2. So we're going to end up with 84 square root of 2 when we're all done with the simplifying process. The division problems. Remember, we're going to simplify the numerator and the denominator separately. So the square root of 24x to the 6th, y to the 7th, is going to come out to be 2x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, square root 6y. And if that's a lot and you're not sure how to get to that next answer, please ask in class. And the square root of 16 is 4. So we end up with 2x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, square root 6y, all over 4. Now you'll notice that there's one more step. That's because 2 and 4 can simplify to 1/2. So I have simplified that fraction 2/4 to 1/2. And so you'll see x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, square root 6y, all over 2. And that is just because I reduced the fraction. Last example, square root of 48 over square root of 25. We want to simplify square root of 48 and square root of 25. Square root of 48 comes out to be 4 square root of 3. And the square root of 25 is 5. So we get 4 square root of 3 over 5. I know that there's a lot to do with multiplying and dividing, but feel free to re-watch the video a couple of times till you feel like you're comfortable, and then bring your questions into class. We're going to continue working on these radicals.